Good afternoon. Well, yeah, it's delightful to get a chance to meet you, Yusuf. I know you took charge of operations during the pandemic, right? So now you get a chance to face the world and tell everyone what you're doing. And I was amazed at the size of your business these days. But maybe you could just give everyone a quick overview of yourself, your role, and where you're taking things.
Sure. Well, thank you, Phil. It's a pleasure to be here. We're always happy to join HFS and join a number of you here. It's been a productive day, and many of the topics you've covered have been things that are near and dear to our hearts. So it's a pleasure to be here. As Phil said, I run what we call our operations business, which is really the evolution of our business process management services. And now, we put tech, data, and AI in front of all of it. It's really the evolution of our managed services business. We operate across Accenture and everything that Accenture does. It's about 215,000 people now and about 10 billion in revenue.
There you go. Out of 800,000.
A little bit less. A little bit less.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to know what's going to happen when you go past 1 million employees. That Yusuf, you've been in this role for a couple of years. What have you learned personally since you've taken charge of now a $10 billion P&L and a huge business? What sort of lessons can you share with everybody here about what you've picked up in terms of leadership style and maybe how it's changed you?
I think the world has changed all of us in the last couple of years. Which I feel like we've been saying a lot, but we're seeing it manifest in what we do every day. Personally, I've been with Accenture 23 years, and I grew up as sort of a classic management consultant, and then I was involved in our technology business, and I ran various P&Ls, and I'd been in all parts of Accenture, actually, except this business. And my view of this business was always that it was sort of a traditional BPO business, and in fact, it was a traditional BPO business many years ago. But I think if you just think about the evolution of the industry. And all of you, here know this well, but when we helped pioneer the industry 25 years ago, it was principally about efficiency and labor arbitrage. And as that sort of modernized, it became about process excellence. It became about bringing our functional expertise together with what we were doing in the BPO business and really optimizing processes. And then as our industry practices deepened and our front office capabilities deepened, we became the world's biggest digital agency, for example, Accenture did. We started doing a lot of work in the front office from an operations standpoint. And that evolved as technology continued to get more prolific. And I think most people know Accenture as a technology firm. We were able to bring all of our technology capabilities into this business. And pre-pandemic, we were talking a lot about what we call the journey to intelligent operations. And that was about putting tech and data in front of every process, front of every business process, and really driving more of a human plus machine model to executing core functions. And the core functions were in the front office, marketing, sales, customer service, in the enterprise functions, which is where the business sort of operated more traditionally, and then in the industry specific services, where we do claims and underwriting and insurance, or we do pharmacovigilance for life sciences companies. And what we realized was at that point is that if you put tech and data and AI in front of every one of these processes, not only can you get the efficiency, but you can become more data led. And from an outcome standpoint, you're now affecting the top line, the bottom line, the balance sheet. It became much more than just efficiency. And I would say now, Phil, in terms of what it's been like the last couple of years, coming out of the pandemic, we're in a new normal. And that new normal is employees have different expectations, customers have different expectations, technologies continue to advance, and every client I'm talking to, talks about how they need to go faster, they got to digitize faster, they have to put more resilience in the business, they have to change multiple parts of the business at the same time. We call that total enterprise reinvention at Accenture, and our strategic managed services business is now really a vehicle to go and execute that transformation.
Yeah. So we talked a lot this morning about surviving in a sort of recessionary or quasi-recessionary environment. So what do you advise clients who may be feeling the pressure and feeling the stress of having to reinvent a lot of what they do? What's the advice that you're giving them in today's market?
Yeah, it's an interesting market because, as you say, I'm not I'm not sure how to classify it as I don't know anybody is. And again, when I talk to clients, they say, look, I need efficiency and I need cost, but I also need growth. And I need those things at the same time in this environment. And I have a difficult time making choices of cost versus growth. And your question is timely because so almost 2 weeks ago, we just put out our latest research on reinventing operations. And it's sort of our flagship research. We refresh it every couple of years. And this is our first refresh sort of post-pandemic. We surveyed 1,700 executives, companies in all industries across the world of different sizes. And we effectively score them against 6 criteria. And the criteria range from the use of data and AI to how they apply technology, to how technology leaders and business leaders collaborate, to the talent agenda, to leading practices, the sort of standard things you would see. But the special sauce in what the researchers told us is it's not about optimizing each one of those things independently, but it's how those work together that create competitive advantage and that can give you that growth and that cost optimization. And the good news is there's lots of room for improvement. Only 9% of those clients, the 1,700 that we surveyed, really score at the top end, what we call operations reinventors. And what that means, obviously, is that there's plenty of opportunity for the 90% of the others out there, to continue to focus. Their reward is great in doing so. Those companies that were in that top 9% get about a 1.4 times greater EBIT relative to their peer group, and they've returned 2.2 times more to shareholders over a 3-year period.
Yeah, thanks, Yusuf. And one of the things that came out of the leadership session we did this morning was desire for enterprises to get out of the silos and think more holistically, like stop thinking about your own little bit and start thinking more about the whole, how finance and procurement, HR, how these things are connected. How do you feel that enterprises are moving more in that direction, or it's still a big struggle trying to break down those barriers?
It's still a big struggle trying to break down those barriers, but I think again, if when I talk to C-suites, they all see the value and the importance of doing so. And when you talk about total enterprise reinvention, that is touching multiple parts of the enterprise at the same time and executing both process, operating model, and technology changes at the same time, through a process we call compressed transformation. If you're not collaborating across the C-suite, if you're not collaborating across the functional silos, then you're unlikely to get the return on the investment just because of the speed at which change is happening and because data is the common thread that sort of goes through all of that, and there's no way that you can unlock the value of all of that without breaking down some of the silos.
Yeah, exactly. So, so that takes us to this autonomous enterprise we've been talking about, helping clients, not just centralize data, access data, automate data, but also think about patterns and artificial intelligence around data and how that can enable them to make lower risk decisions, see things before their competitors do. How do you feel that is evolving? There's obviously incredible energy around generative AI, the conversations. I felt this conference was at a good time because we're still on the upswing. We haven't gone into that Dunning-Kruger effect completely yet. And there's a lot of excitement around the shift. So what are you seeing from a client end? Is this something where enterprises are getting quite advanced with exploring things, or is it still very early phases?
Well, that's a good question. So let me start by telling you, your generative enterprise, I love it. I tell a very similar story in terms of how it's all evolving. And I think for people like us who have been at this a while, I'm very excited about the generative AI prospect and the evolution because it's things that we've been talking about for a long time. Many of the same principles still apply. But I think because the technology has sort of crossed a chasm and there's a bit of a new paradigm, it's got the right level of energy and the right level of interest now across consumers, across enterprises, across every one of us thinking about how it's going to work. The we've been in this business a very long time, sort of thinking about this for a long time. We've got a platform, Phil, we call Synops. Synops is our technology platform that we use to do everything from benchmark and baseline processes to automate and orchestrate work, to create data visualization, to also deliver technology applications on behalf of our clients so that they don't have to build those things themselves if it doesn't come into their enterprise systems, doesn't come with the enterprise systems. But such a core component to Synops and our journey to intelligent operations on behalf of our clients has been this notion of automation and AI. Years ago, we started with very basic automation, transactional type of tasks that you could automate, if-then type stuff. And then we got into, as data became more prolific, a bit more descriptive and predictive analytics. We got into the prescriptive phase of analytics, and now we got generative. And generative, obviously, as the word implies, is able to create things. And when you can put generative together with predictive and prescriptive, the opportunity in business, I think, is exponential. However, in the same way that for transactional automation and predictive and prescriptive, you needed to have the data right, the same is true in generative AI. Securing your data, the data quality, the availability of data, the integration of data, building that digital core and being able to leverage that across the enterprise is what's going to make generative AI either very successful or another great piece of technology that ultimately, meets its useful life without being able to be powered with the right information.
Yeah. And I've been covering this industry for 25 years, and I feel this is the biggest inflection point since offshoring really hit 20 years ago in terms of there is a real shift in the capability of technology that we didn't quite get with RPA 10 years ago. We saw the promise of RPA, but it didn't add enough sort of creative value, business value. This shift to generative, you can feel the value, you can hear the value, you can smell the value almost in terms of how fast is this going to move, do you think? Is this going to be a roller coaster move at this point? There's going to be a lot of people diving in very aggressively?
Well, look, I share your enthusiasm that I think we're at an inflection point. Yeah. I think it's been years in the making, and the technology is at a point here where we'll be able to do things much faster maybe than we've seen before. It's very early still, but our research indicates that up to 40% of all jobs will in some way be affected. So 40% of all roles in the enterprise will in some way be affected by generative AI. Some to a great degree, some to a lesser degree. And we've got 5 areas where we think generative AI will really play a meaningful role. I was in Bangalore with my team last week, and we went through 45 different generative AI use cases, a dozen of which we've already sort of piloted against core functions that we drive on behalf of our clients, and all of that's been developed in the last 60 days. So to your point about speed, we're able to, this is moving much faster. Now, they're pilots, on really good ideas. Now, the speed to value, and the discussion I was having with the team last week is, okay, so if I start applying these now inside the enterprises of the companies that we serve, what value will we be able to extract from there? And the answer is we don't know yet, and it quite depends on against which data are we applying it.
Yeah, I mean, when we started moving our businesses online 30 years ago, it's a long time now, there was a tremendous amount of excitement, and it drove tremendous economic growth because we could do more business. We could do more, we could do things faster, smarter. Now we're at an inflection point where we can really do things faster, smarter, better, do our jobs more efficiently. This doesn't feel like how many jobs people can we get rid of because we can use computers. This is empowering creativity, commerce, intelligence, business. This is like taking business to a whole new level versus something which we could cynically look at and think we're just going to take people out with jobs. Sure, there'll be some low-end jobs, call center jobs and things which will be affected, but I think for intelligence jobs and finance and areas like that, people are going to be empowered, surely.
Again, I see it the same way. We've been employing a human plus machine approach since machines existed. in our BPMS business, which, as I said, is really an evolution. It's why we call it strategic managed services. Now it's a tech and data and AI powered business, with people to help execute. I'm extremely excited about this. Every time we've had technology innovation, it's provided more opportunity, not less opportunity, not just for our business, but for what our clients can do. And to your point, the opportunities it provides our people in terms of the type of work that they get to do. We spend $1 billion a year at Accenture on training and development of our people. $1 billion a year. I'm excited to spend that $1 billion a year on training a different skill set, upskilling. And that's what we've always done. As technology's matured, we've developed people in different ways. It's given them different career paths. It's given them more meaningful opportunity and more rewarding work to do.
Yeah. I think it's also changing the skill set background, that you don't need to be an algorithmic specialist or a computer science graduate to do this. You can go to OpenAI and create your own chatbots tomorrow on no code. It's incredible. But
yeah, you can do that. Again, I would take you back to the data, right? So where that's going, how it's a lot of fun to go out there and play with it. But how we're going to apply it in business to create value for the enterprise in a secure and responsible way has a lot to do with building your digital core, and doing all the other things that you have to do inside the enterprise to be able to get the value out of that.
Got it. So people are going to see, here's the value, but we got to fix the digital core, the data core, so we can actually get there. Because
it's a great tool, right? You get without the data, without access, without security, without what provides the unique advantage, the competitive advantage inside one enterprise versus another. That's I think where the opportunity is.
Okay. This is great. So one final question, Yusuf. This has been great, but once the hype dies down, and it is a bit of hype, let's be honest, when we find a new rhythm, what do you think the conversation is going to be based around?
We did another piece of research around Davos, all around this notion of total enterprise reinvention. And one of my favorite data points that came out of that was, companies are consistently applying. We had a lot of data that talked about how much companies will continue to invest in technology and data specifically. And the research also told us that when companies invest commensurately in people and culture as they do in tech and data, they get an 11% productivity boost. And that's always been the case, right? As long as we've been putting in technology, we've been talking about it's technology, but it's also people and it's process, and yet we continue to invest in technology. But the companies that get it right make that commensurate investment in people and in culture. And I think what technology does is it allows us to move some of these things faster. I think this will allow us to move some of these things faster. But I think the winners, I hope the conversation is about the people, the reskilling, the culture, the operating model, the breaking down of the silos, the customer experience, because this is going to allow us to achieve many of those things faster.
Yeah, I feel like we need this. Come out of a pandemic, I think people are a little jaded from the whole experience, and we don't want to go back to the drudgery of how we used to do things. This feels like a little, jolt of excitement, and hey, we can actually do things faster. If you know what you're looking for, you can get the information you need incredibly quickly. You can collaborate with colleagues and drive new process, new design, everything. So I'm excited. I think we should all be. I feel much more excitement than negativity, and trust me, I can get negative on things. So, thank you very much, Yusuf. It's been great hearing your thoughts and hearing how you've got this thing over $10 billion of operations. That's phenomenal. I remember when it was like 2 or 3. So,
thank you, Phil. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure. Thank you.